Thank you so much for tuning into another episode of We Can Fight Like Cats If We Have to. All three of us are in the ring today. You got the Natasha with her big smile. You got the Allon with a serious look, pensiveness, straight shooter. And you got me with the Powerpuff. We're all here. I'm Saly. We're super excited to have another great conversation with everybody today. I wanted to welcome everybody and thank everybody for listening to our podcast and for watching our shows on our channel. If you have not subscribed yet, we'd really like a subscription and a share. Please feel free to comment or like this video if you like it. So we have some eventful things happening in the realm of Canada that affect, everybody, including people in New Brunswick. And we have, the number one thing that we like to talk about here is politics. And so let's talk about politics in the election, guys. How are you feeling about it?
I'll let Natasha go first.
You got me. I was going to say I was going to let you go first.
No. Ladies first.
Alon wins.
No. Yeah, this one I win.
I was hoping you would have like a long monologue to begin with, but
I can.
Okay, so we're talking about. Oh, okay, yeah, Saly, go ahead.
I mean,
yes,
right now we
Yeah,
have, the slim pickings of the election of Canada, where we like to pretend that we have a democracy when really it's the dictatorship of the dum-dums. But hey, who's counting?
I think it's amazing. Sorry, I just think it's amazing. And like as an American, I'm still blown away by the fact that you can call an election here when you see that you got a winning hand. I don't understand how that works. Like, if the states ran like that, Trump would still be in office.
Yeah.
Like, how do you do that? How do you look at the playing field and be like, yeah, I've got the winning hand. I'm going to call an election now because I know I'm going to win. That's not
unbelievable.
And I understand that Canada technically isn't a democracy. It's technically still
monarchy,
a monarchical thing, right? But I still find that very, very odd and extremely just unfair. I don't understand how any other party manages to get into power if this is how it's played. Like, how do you as a Canadian citizen feel that you have the ability to get rid of certain elected officials when you know this is what happens? Like, at this rate, Higgs is not going anywhere. He's going to die in office. Like, if every time you turn around and there's an upswing in what he's doing and he decides to call an election provincially, and then now we got this federal thing, I'm just blown away by it. I really don't understand the concept behind it, and I really don't get how Canadians feel that's real choice.
It's not.
Right? It's not fair to independent candidates because you never know when that trigger is going to get pulled. So how do you properly fundraise? How do you properly campaign and canvass your region if you don't know when the ball's going to drop? Right? So now all of a sudden everyone's going to get posters and try to get their platform out as quick as possible. Like, I don't understand.
September 10th is the election, right?
20th.
September 20th. So they have
so that's
20 days.
Weeks?
Yeah,
maybe
20 days,
2.5, 3 weeks.
22 days.
Need 40 days, and they
like, how do you create a platform like that? How do you go out and get voters interested in you? Like, and then Canadians want to complain about, it's the same old parties all the time. Well, what do you expect when you got 20 days to run a campaign?
Exactly.
That's what gets me.
Well, the point is to keep it in favor of the person that's already in power. That's the whole point, right? I'm assuming that it was a majority party that put this provision in, or they've had it since the beginning, but it's extremely unfair.
It's a very monarchy thing, isn't it? When you think about it, it's a very monarchish style, right? Like the king, hey, things are going well in the land. We're going to put it to a vote. Who wants to stay for 10 more years? It's a very monarchical style of running a government under the guise of, you have choice, when you really don't. That's something a monarchy would do. Listen, I just gave you a chicken. I'm going to hold the election now because you all have chickens. Who loves me? And then I stay.
They don't even give us chickens. They promise you a chicken.
Yeah, they
But the
promise
thing
you.
is, like, this is the reality of like, I just don't understand whether it's because I've witnessed firsthand real, genuine, abusive dictatorship,
Yep.
or whether it's because like so many people are just out to lunch. Like, I really don't know what it is. Like, and I'm not sorry if you are offended by what I am saying when you're listening to this, because there's something wrong with you if a leader promises to do multiple things for multiple years and still hasn't done them, or has done the opposite with them. And you still want to hear his promises. And everyone's like, well, yeah, COVID, he did great with the pandemic. Da, 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 da. He did great for small businesses. No, he did great for small businesses when small businesses started rioting and petitions started circulating because small business owners were left to the gutter, especially when it came to CRB, like so much support. The first people we supported, like, people are like, oh, Trudeau didn't leave New Brunswick behind in the pandemic. You know why he didn't? Irving. The first bailout they announced was what, 15 billion to the oil and gas sector? Like, come on, people. Like, what makes you think that you matter other than your stamp on a ticket? Wake up. And I'm not saying any of them are better than any of them. To me, quite frankly, they're all show pleasers. They're all showgirls just on the stage trying to make you throw flowers and dollars their way. That's all it is. They're all showgirls. The only real ones going out there and really busting it are the ones really jeopardizing themselves when they put themselves on the line, whether they're affiliated with a party or independent. When they go and they put that risk out, knowing they're like up for a beating, going, like, for example, in New Brunswick, if you're one of the non-major parties and you go up and you defend them, like, you're gonna go for a beating. Or if you're an independent, you're gonna go for a beating. You're treated like you're stupid. You're treated like, what is wrong with you? I'm not gonna vote for you because clearly you're in denial of reality, when the reality is everybody in charge is a dipstick. Every single person who has had power to date, be it liberals or conservative, has proven their point that they are solid dipsticks that do not care about the general population, that would rather put their agenda personally and financially first. They do not care about the people who are struggling to make ends meet. They do not care about those who are part of the middle class and are now part of the poor class, working poor. Because you know what? Everybody's like, oh, we don't need to care about the homeless. We don't need, you know what? More and more of the middle class is ending up being homeless. The fact that we
That's
make
facts.
housing deplorably high versus inflation,
Mhm.
an inflation deplorably high versus salaries. And you know what? You can't just go and up the salaries either, because then you are ransacking what's left of small businesses, because small businesses are already struggling as is. If they want to put up salaries, great. Give subsidies to small business so they can stay afloat. I'm sorry, the oil and gas sector, the fact that we keep, making all of these promises and then at the end still throwing money at the oil and gas sector to this day, and all these people who think that that's normal or reasonable or acceptable, it still blows my mind. It really blows my mind. And it's not about jobs. It's about keeping billionaire status. Sorry, that was my rant. I got in a few arguments in the last 48 hours that really made me see like how brainwashed people are. You
I
can't.
think that,
Oh, go ahead.
no, I was gonna say that. Okay, so I've lived in other countries before I moved to Canada, and I was young when I moved, but old enough to see, politics, get some idea of politics, and lived in Pakistan, and I turned 18 there. and I was old enough to vote. So I took an interest in the politics. And then I moved to the US for graduate. And, there was a lot of politics on campus. The students were very involved. So I became apprised of that too. And um, I noticed that there is much less questioning of government in Canada than there was in these other two countries. I don't know if it's New Brunswick and it's because of the, deliberately low bar given to the education system, which Minister Cardy seems to be interested in keeping low. I don't fault the teachers, they do their best, but if that's the curriculum they're given, what else are they supposed to do? So I don't know if it's because of it's intensified in New Brunswick, but I find that there's a lot less willingness to question government decision making as a whole. And that's very problematic if you're going to call yourself a democracy, because the whole point of democracy is to be able to ask questions, and every citizen should have that right and opportunity to do that. And if everyone is constantly being shushed and told not to do that, which I saw a lot with COVID in particular,
Still
because I
do.
think that's partly why we're having this election, because of the way when they say how COVID was handled, it's not so much the election isn't being called because of the way COVID was handled, but because of the CERB that was given out, and that he expects to, I say he, but it's not one person, it's the party.
Yeah.
It's not Trudeau, it's the Liberal Party. They're expecting the voters to be grateful for that CERB benefit, and they're expecting them to vote for them because of that. So it's really a financial transaction. And it's not so much about the handling of the pandemic, because we had different policies in different provinces, so it's not like there was a unified response. But it troubles me, the lack of questioning, the lack of desire to question, because you can't really be a healthy functioning democracy if you do that. But at the same time, even when the public does ask for there's a unified sort of re- re- request to change the electoral system, like there was in the 2015 election, and the Liberals came to power. And one of the reasons that people voted for Liberals is he promised, yes, this will be the last one, over and over again. I heard it throughout the election campaign. This is going to be the last one. We're going to have electoral reform. Well, guess what? We didn't. And then they won again with less of a majority, but they won again. They could have pushed it through. The NDP was supporting them on virtually every bill. They could have done it, and they didn't. So what I see is this power hungry party that is not willing to let go, and essentially called an election because they thought this would be a good time to have a majority.
Which
And
is the
given what I
fundamental
have
definition
seen,
of a dictatorship.
a fundament, exactly. The purpose of a majority is you don't need other parties to help you out with legislation. You don't need anybody else's support. You can do whatever you want. I find the idea of a majority terrifying, whether it's the Liberal Party or the Conservative Party. I don't even know what the
Any
NDP would do
party
if
at
they had.
all.
No one should have a majority. First of all, it's not even democratic. You can't have one party which is representing under 50% of the voting public, and they're going to decide for the rest of the country what to do on each and every single thing. That's profoundly undemocratic, and it should just not. It's just should not be happening. And they lied, and they let down the people, not once but twice. And we're supposed to trust this guy
10
again. And no,
times.
I don't think it's about, see, and this is what I mean. This makes me sad that people can so easily be bought. I see it over and
Yep.
over again with the immigrant community. We've talked about bootlickers. We've talked about, sellouts. White people are no different. If all they need is to be told, listen, as long as we think that there is risk, we're going to keep giving this benefit. And I know that there are people in genuinely precarious situations. There are people who are, in sanitation, and people who are truck drivers and healthcare workers who are in genuine danger, and I respect that. But the point is, when you give somebody this incentive that we're going to change the CERB benefit into a universal basic income, that is really essentially a bribe. And nobody else picks up on this. I mean, I have a lot of fights with a lot of people online who are like, you're not supporting UBI, that means you're an elitist, you don't care about the middle class. No, I come to it from a completely different lens. And like everything, I was thinking, okay, so we're talking about a universal basic income, right? And a lot of people support it because everybody has hard times. People will have mental health issues, they'll have all kinds of issues. And there are times where, yes, you should get that support. But I'm thinking, you're talking about a universal support for everyone. And how are you going to fund it? And what I see happening in real life, this is what I see happening, is you're going to have a lot of Canadian people who would rather just not work if they don't have to. I'm not talking about everybody. A lot of people enjoy working. We enjoy, the feeling that working gives us, but not everybody does, right? And then you're going to have a lot of businesses who don't have people coming in. And what happens in New Brunswick is they often don't have people in the seafood industry and other, farms. They don't have people from the Canadian public who wants to come in and apply for those jobs. So what do?
Not just those jobs, any jobs.
They bring in migrant workers, okay? And migrant workers have no rights. They have no clue about anything. They're treated like garbage. I don't care what people say. There is no comparison between how migrant workers are treated and how Canadian citizens are treated. There is no comparison. You cannot compare. It's not even comparable. And this is what I see happening. So I see that they're going to have this UBI if they put it in place, and it's going to be, I don't see an awful lot of people of color being complacent and sitting there and saying, you know what, we don't need to get a job, because we know that the system is not built to benefit us. And we know that it's not safe to depend on government funding. We know that. And I think most of us, if given the choice, would rather work and refuse that funding. Exactly. But you're going to have some people who have this sense of entitlement and they're not going to work. And you're going to have a lot of people of color who are migrant workers coming in without any safeguards, and they're going to be exploited. And you're going to have a two-tier class. And this is going to be your modern version of slavery.
We already have that.
I don't know how people are not seeing this, and it's just, but they don't have that lens.
Oh, they see it, they just don't care. Sorry, go ahead, Allon.
Oh, that's horrible. That's even worse.
Sorry, it's a unique perspective.
Yeah.
The universal income, I'm not as, I guess, pessimistic about it, because I see other countries in Europe and the Nordic areas doing it already. 32% tax rate, and that's how they get down, right? And in those societies, people are still working and still doing their thing. I think you're not wrong. I mean, the fact that there have been, I think my wife was telling me, I think a fishery a month has gone up in flames. Clearly, immigrants are fed up and have had enough of this, because like you said, there is no difference between what an immigrant comes from to what they come to in Canada. You're still stuck in a situation where you're working in a menial fucking labor intensive job for low wages, living in substandard conditions, and you're trapped because the work permit and visa says you can't go anywhere. How is that any different from the country?
You have no family or friend support when you come here.
Right, you have nothing. You have nothing.
Things that you have left,
speaks your language.
Canada takes away from you.
Are gone.
Yeah,
that's right. No one speaks your language. You have no support. So how is that any better? Right. So you're not wrong in the fact that individuals who want to take advantage of that will take advantage of that. But I think in any economy that's going to be taken advantage of. I think the problem here in New Brunswick is a simple equation that you have. Immigrants are coming here, and like you said, people of color know they have to grind, they got to work, they got to hustle.
Yep.
We know that.
We know that.
So for us, it's a natural thing, right? We know in order to get what we need to do, we've been programmed and ingrained that if you don't work, you don't eat. Right? That's what every person of color knows. That's like the first thing you learn coming out the womb, right? So we know that. So, you know, you have this whole universal, thing that's going to come if it does get in. Is it the same people who aren't working now aren't going to work then? They're not going to work then. They're not working now. It doesn't matter how much money you throw at them. If people don't want to work, they're not going to work.
Exactly.
New Brunswick's issue is that New Brunswick has no industry. We have nothing to offer but some trees and a tidal bore. We don't have anything. We have no industry. We have no trades. We don't have anything. And we lucked out. The New Brunswick constantly lucks out. So we luck out in the pandemic, the fact that like no one's here. So the virus didn't really spread, right? Then we luck out that people in Ontario are fed up of living in Ontario now, and there's a massive exodus. So now we have all this influx of old money coming in, and we're like, oh, look at us. We're in New Brunswick. Look, our housing prices, we're building all these adult-only brand new condos, and look at all this Ontario money just flowing in. We constantly luck out without doing anything, and we keep just coasting on the luck of life. And we've never been in a situation where we have to address the issue of there being no economy and no infrastructure for real jobs and sustainability here in the province. I read a report or an article a couple weeks ago about how the tourism industry can't find people to work in their little ice cream huts or whatever.
Nobody can find anybody to work. That has been the history of years.
Right, but check this out. Now the tourism industry is propositioning the education system to make tourism jobs and jobs in tourism a viable career option to kids in school, starting in grade school. The problem I have with this, and I'm sure you ladies would definitely agree, is that right now we tell kids you could be a doctor, a lawyer, a scientist, whatever. Tourism wants to throw in, oh, you could be a server, a waiter, blah, blah, blah. And you already know what's going to happen in schools with the racist ass teacher. Little white Johnny's going to be a doctor and a lawyer and a scientist. And little brown Jock is going to be, you know what? You're going to be a server. Don't be a doctor. You need to pursue this tourism career path with no fucking future. That's the problem I see with it.
Oh yeah.
The fact that the tourism industry is trying to be slick and say, well, let's incorporate tourism jobs as a potential career path in school next to being a doctor and lawyer and a tradesperson is fucking just underhanded and shady. It's underhanded. You're not going to tell the white kid to work in hospitality. You're not going to do it. You're not going to tell the white kid to go work in a fish plant or serve ice cream in Grand Dig or Shediac for the summer as a viable career path. No one's going to do that. You'll tell the brown kid that fucking as soon as you look at him. The problem is that we have nothing here. So New Brunswick really has no choice but to have a universal wage. We need that more than anything. We're the poorest province in the union, right? Like we need something. I definitely see your point, and I don't think you're wrong at all. I think that
they're going to exploit. Migrant workers.
They already are, but migrant
for everything, and they're going to give them no safeguards, and it's going to be like modern slavery. No. I see it happening. I know.
Listen, I think the thing. Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead.
Yeah.
Allon, you?
No. I just want to expound on the fact that I agree. I mean, migrant work. If you look around, the majority of service industry jobs are filled by immigrants. Right now, we're talking Tim Hortons, we're talking cab drivers, we're talking everything. But that's the hustle.
Some of them are doctors. Some of them are doctor imports from other countries.
Right, and that's
the broken promise of New Brunswick.
Exactly, and that's what everyone kind of misses. That when you come here, including myself, as an American, I came here voluntarily, but still, I couldn't take advantage of my degree because I don't speak French. So what did I have to do? I got to earn a living, right? I got to fucking take jobs where I can. So I've been a cleaner. I've worked in a warehouse. I've been, a garbage man. Like I've done all these things.
It has nothing to do with whether or not you speak French. I'm sorry, Allon. It has to do with the fact that you're a Black man. I'm an educated
too.
girl from a French university. I couldn't get a fucking call back for an interview. Like, no. It has
That too,
nothing to do
right?
with
Like
no. When my middle
Yeah,
name is
it's about
Mohammed and they
racism.
see
It
that,
is.
they're not gonna fucking call me. They didn't call me.
Yeah.
And the jobs I got called for. And here's the thing: the standard in New Brunswick is so low. I just met a family from Bermuda.
Mhm.
And the husband is talking to me about all this experience he has in banking security. Okay. And he's like, now I heard a rumor that managers here don't even need really a university degree. And I looked at him and I said, managers here don't even really need a high school degree.
What?
The standard is low because
Mhm.
Johnny is Fred's uncle. And so Fred's going to get the job because Johnny is the one who's hiring, you know,
Exactly.
like there is no stand. And I told him that I'm like,
Exactly.
your experience
No
does not
standard.
matter here. Your networking, like it did
Mm-mm.
in a Toronto, maybe 30 years ago plus, matters here. But
Mhm.
your education and your
Mhm.
qualification doesn't mean shit.
Doesn't matter.
And I'm going to change a little bit my perception on, or I'm going to change a little bit the context. There are jobs here. We have Spilo or whatever the hell it's called now, which is one of the world's leading gaming industries that does casino machines. Okay.
Oh, IGT.
We have, we have engineering firms, some of the top.
Yep.
We have
Yep.
oil refineries that require engineers, that require whatever, right? We have computer programming centers. There is a lot in New Brunswick that's kept very hush hush, including even like TD Bank's head office. One of them is here, you know. It's not that there's no jobs in New Brunswick, it's that we are
They're not
being
available
very
to anyone.
cautious. So TD doesn't hire anybody from New Brunswick. TD
That's
recruits all their people from Ontario. And New Brunswickers, if you're listening, it's not because Ontarians are so much better than us or think that they're so much better than us. It's because they're educated. I said it. We have allowed the status of our education and our literacy in this country, in this province, to go so low that we have allowed to be ourselves to become the butt of this country and the laughing stock of this country. And I'm sorry, that should be upsetting. That should be embarrassing. And that should make you want more for yourself. And if it makes you just want another handout, then you are the problem. The next thing I want to say is universal basic income works in those countries because they're educated. They have solid education programs where the people are actually educated and have a brain that's been developed in their head. Not to be rude to our listeners. If you're listening to us ranting, you probably have some sort of frustration because you have contributed as much as you can to the society and you see that you haven't even done a dent into the society, or that you have been punished for your intellectual capacity. You are frustrated. So I'm not talking about you. I'm talking about Cardi and his minion fucktards, okay? The next thing I would like to address is universal basic income. I'm not worried about universal basic income. I'm worried about my rights as a woman with reproductive organs, okay? Let's not even go so far. I'm not worried about what's happening with the tax money that they're collecting. I'm worried about the tax money that they're already taking, putting into private institutions that control our medical systems. For most provinces, they're actually private institutions. Some of them are run by the state, but most of them are actually private companies that are for profit. And that includes in New Brunswick. And I'm sorry, a conservative telling me that he believes in the right of choice. You barely believe in the right of reproductive organs. I'd like to know any education proposal that talks about a female vagina and all the organs in it. And yes, I just said vagina on the radio. Get over it. It's an organ, like a mouth, like a nose, like an ear, like an eyeball. There are reproductive issues that occur in this. Why is it that women are so much more likely to die of reproductive organ failure or collapse than men? Prostate exams are pressed. Prostate exams are taken seriously. When you're 40, it's kind of like the cutoff line. Like, dude, you're going to get your prostate checked whether you like it or not. Nobody's going up to women and being like, I'm going to do extensive research to make sure that you're not basically imploding from the inside. Nobody is doing that. Everybody's telling women, no, you can't have your tubes tied. No, you can't have a hysterectomy, even though you need a transfusion every month when you have your period. These are conversations that I have with people on a daily basis. So frankly, I can't even worry that far because I almost died myself from reproductive issues about a year ago, a year and a half ago now. So it really like, they're all liars and they can't, and the liberals don't pretend that you are pro women when the first thing you're going to do to ridicule a woman who is disagreeing with you is say that she's emotional. Trudeau. I'm going to hold that one because to me, there's something my best friend told me when we were young that literally reduced my shock factor in life 1,000,000%, but I still get shocked. And it is that you know who people really are when they are put in a position to make a choice. And most of the time, you're not going to like that choice. And you know what, Trudeau, you showed your real colors in regards to women that day when you chose to say that Jody Wilson-Raybould is emotionally unstable. That was an unacceptable way to react to someone, a woman, a female of color disagreeing with you. So I don't know whether it was racism or sexism, but that was clear as day. And that was a natural reaction. It wasn't scripted by all your people that write your scripts, right? And so you have these cons trying to win us over by pretending they're liberal, the liberals trying to win us over by pretending we're charity. I don't want to be someone's charity.
Yeah.
I want to be somebody's homegirl. Like, I want to know that if I'm going in for the fight of my life, which every day Canadians are in right now, and people all over the world are in right now, we are in for the fight of our lives, except the bougie 1%ers. I want to know that I have a posse behind me that's got my back. And right now, what we have behind our backs are people armed with harpoons, knives, anchors, archers, name the weapon, they have it in our backs, and they're just like, what do you think is going to be the least painful for me to kill you with? Like, really, that's how I feel about our government today. And frankly, there's a movement right now that wants politics to completely be separate from parties. They feel like every single person who goes into government should be independent and not a member of a party.
Agreed.
And frankly, I agree with that 1,000,000%. Why? Because unless if you're in it for the people, you're not in it for the right reason. You're still going to get people going in there for popularity, but at least they're not going to be like gangster posses pretending to be all cool to get our votes because there's some showgirls.
Literally like a gangster posse. Honestly, that's what it looks like to me, because it's not like most of these people are genuinely there to uplift the populations. It's just but at this point you think, like, who can you trust? And I want to get to the Green Party. I know that the Green Party is not much of an issue federally, even though we've had remarkable success with the Green Party in New Brunswick, and I'm going to get to that in a minute. But I don't know. I know climate change is an issue. I mean, you'd have to be, blind not to know that climate change is not an issue. But I'm thinking, I always look at why things happened, right? I'm not a person who instinctively has a reaction. Whenever something happens, I think, why is it happening? And that's just how my mind is. It just goes in circles. And I'm looking at this Green Party and I'm thinking, you have this party and it's prioritizing climate change. And at the same time, it's quite fiscally conservative. And it's when it comes to other issues besides climate change, it's pretty much center, if not center right. So I'm thinking, why is this party even there? And if you look at what happens all over the country, if you look at how voters vote, why do we keep going back between liberals and conservatives in the last 10, 15 years when, NDP is another option? And I'm not going to say they're perfect because I disagree with the NDP, which I have told them, even though I'm a member. I disagree with the blanket support of unions, first of all, because if you're supporting a corrupt worker, then that's not a good thing. But at the same time, it was a third option. And it's very important to have a third option because it keeps people not honest, but at least trying not to be so openly, blatantly corrupt and blatantly racist. It will at least keep people on their toes. But then you have this Green Party that comes in, and it's ostensibly a choice for progressive voters, right? And what happens is in almost every jurisdiction across the country, you will have the progressive vote that gets split between the Greens and the NDP. And when people want a safe vote, they vote Liberal, right? Even though a lot of people are voting Liberal and they're saying, we've seen this play out over and over again. They keep coming in, they keep spending money like it's their dad's trust fund, and it's wasting money and putting us in deficit for generations to come, and they're stuck with voting Liberal because they don't want to vote Conservative. And because usually it's because they're socially not conservative, or they're financially they're against the fact that they are going to do bailouts for corporations, which by the way the Liberals also do. So you have this party, and it's competing with the NDP, and you no longer really are giving people a safe third choice, because people are thinking, oh my God, I don't want conservatives, I'm going to have to vote Liberal. And I don't know, like, it makes me wonder where, why it's there, what purpose it's serving. And then I want to get to what happened with the NDP in New Brunswick. And I think if you live in New Brunswick and you follow politics, you would know that there has been a precipitous drop in NDP voters in the last five years since the 2015 election. And it's gone down from 13 to 15% to 2%, which is a big, big drop. And a lot of that vote has gone to the Green Party, and some of it's gone to the Liberals. But I think it's very notable and very disgusting that when Jagmeet Singh was an elected leader of the NDP, immediately you had a mass defection of NDP candidates to the Green Party. And they did not even have the decency to hide their reasoning, which was, no one in New Brunswick is going to vote for a leader of a party who's not white. They were just like very open about it. And what's even sadder is the Green Party accepted them, even though they gave this rationale. So I don't know how else to say it, because the NDP is not saying it, but I don't know how else to say that the drop in the popularity of the NDP in New Brunswick is purely because of racism. I don't even know why people are not saying it. As usual, nobody wants to talk about it. Nobody wants to acknowledge it or draw attention to it, but it's absolutely disgusting and really appalling. And we had a candidate, a federal candidate, who was canvassing for signatures, an NDP candidate, and
this was last week.
This was last week.
Natasha's going to talk about.
And this lady and her, they had a support person from the federal party who was with her, and they spoke to this elderly person, this elderly gentleman, and he asked
wasn't elderly.
Which party are you from? Oh, he wasn't elderly?
No, he was not elderly. No, he was like 40s, 50s.
Okay, so middle-aged. And they told him which party they were from. They said, we're not doing this, when you're getting signatures, it's not to vote for somebody, it's really just to get that person on the ballot and basically to support democracy. But this person apparently got very upset and said he was not going to vote for a party with that towel head, and made some other racially tinged comments about Jagmeet Singh. And then when they moved on to another home, he actually went ahead and slashed their tires.
He didn't slash.
So
worse, first of all, he got a knife from his home.
He got a knife.
And stabbed.
He got
it wasn't like even like a scrape. Yeah. It was a very aggressive pow, like the description was that the tire busted. Now, for the listeners here, I'd like to also add a little bit to this story. This particular candidate was running in Beauséjour, is running in Beauséjour. She still, despite that asshole, got the 150 signatures to be on the ballot.
What she was obviously
Okay.
trying to stop her from.
She was applying to run against the monopoly that was happening in Beauséjour. Now, I think for 4 elections straight, the only candidate on the ballot was a liberal. So if you lived in Beauséjour, you literally had no choice but to vote liberal. Now, how is that democracy? I find the whole like Elections Canada thing that you need 150 signatures a bit rough too.
Yeah.
But that's, you know, that's my
another
my whole like anti-popularity thing. Like, if I want people to vote for me, I want people to vote for me, not run around and get a sticker so that I can prove that maybe I'm real and maybe I should run. Like, I think if you want to run, you should just motherfucking run and see what happens. Listen, if you're in Canada and you don't vote, stop this stupidity. Go out and vote. You have a right and a freedom to vote. Go vote. Even if your options are shit, go out and vote. Because you are the employer. You have to pick the candidate who is going to fill the job. And by voting, you are casting a vote on who we are going to employ to do the jobs to lead this country into the next level.
But it's interesting that this guy this lady told us about, this woman candidate told us about, she said he actually said Jagmeet Singh took his job. Okay. And she said at this point, I don't know if this guy's delusional or what, but Jagmeet has never been in power, either provincially or federally. So how can he possibly take your job? So not only are they ignorant and stupid, but they're also like horrifically misinformed, or they're just crazy. And at this point,
they think anybody coming is taking their job, right? Anybody who's not white.
And again, he's 3rd generation, and he didn't come in. And even if he did come in, it's because the government of Canada brought him in. So if you have a problem, I keep telling people who are disgruntled and jealous all the time, oh, it's either, oh, people are taking our jobs, or it's you're taking our healthcare, or just taking. We're here because the government wanted us here and asked us to come here. And because they wanted people to come in and grow the tax base, because it's not being done, you know, on its own. And it's so this guy not only said that, but he also, you know, made comments about his turban. And it was also interesting that she said, I felt that this was misdirected. That's her opinion. I don't know if it's true, but she said, I felt this was misdirected Islamophobia, because she said, you know, maybe he doesn't know the difference. But whatever it was,
people don't.
Most people don't, and I'm sure New Brunswickers definitely don't. The average person at least does not, which we're, you know, people are trying to change, but that's going to take a long time, because you need interest to do that. So you
need education.
But you also need, they're not doing
it. No, you need education. In grade 9, when I lived overseas, I took something called a world cultures class. I learned every single religion that exists in the world. I learned every single type of government that exists in the world. I learned every single type of war treaty, peace treaty, organizations, unions of countries, whatever, you name it, I learned it. I learned every leader of every country. I learned so much. It's education, whether you like it or not. If we're feeding it to our kids, they will learn it. And God knows I was in grade 9. I did not care. I did not care. Little did I know that I would become a disgruntled 37-year-old. But you know, I did not care, but I still learned that stuff because I needed to pass my exam. And lo and behold, I became a more powerful person by doing that. And the fact is, and I hate to offend people. No, I don't. That's a lie. I hate to upset people. I don't hate to offend people, but if you're too sensitive, you need to grow up. Okay. If we as Canadians are not filling the need of this economy and this country, And, we are not demanding enough from our government. And because of our lack of demand, our country is going into poverty. Don't be pissed off that our negligence has forced them to go and get people that they're going to attempt to brainwash, by the way. They're going to attempt to brainwash these people that they get from other countries and make them think that it's charity, even though they're taking all of their money. The government is taking all of their money. They're going to pretend like it's charity when they bring them here, which it's not. It's a business transaction. So I really push it very, very much that anybody who has the legalities to vote, get on your feet, get off your ass and vote. You have an obligation. And stop this whole, if I don't vote conservative, the liberals will win. If I don't vote where your freaking heart tells you to vote. Why? Because the only thing worse than having a leader that is not fit to be leader is to have that leader have a majority government. Okay? I do not want to see a majority government because that does not represent all Canadians.
It just
And
does
this
not.
is not about
Vote
people of color. This is not about Muslims, Christians, Jewish people. This is not about wars in the Middle East and problems in South America and floods in the US. This is about our country and our people. And if we are not equally represented, then what the hell are we doing sitting on our ass? Okay. I think
your best bet if you want electoral reform is not to vote for one of the major parties because they're not going to do it. The only people who are going to push electoral reform is going to be the smaller parties.
I don't think any of them are. I think
that's just
all of them are in it for a dictatorship. I think in it, all of them are looking for leadership and power. They have not done enough to prove otherwise. Any organized party, in my opinion, any organized party that doesn't have standards, like, let's be serious here. The NDP allows people who are racist in. You and I know that very well.
Less so than
they allow no racist people are less interested in joining the NDP, but the NDP doesn't put a firm foot and be like, you're a racist motherfucker and you are not part of our group. You know what? That's not cool. That's not taking a stand. That's not taking a stand. That's not taking a stand for a value or a right. That's not promoting equality. No, it's not. It's mushing the rights and the freedoms of your members who came to you for a safe space and found out you are just as much a sellout as everybody else. Because you're all about the votes, you're all about the membership, you are not about change. And that is why I'm really pro this movement that's all about abolishing parties and forcing everybody to run independent and the government to be run exclusively by independents. Because then people no longer have a party supporting them financially or like popularity based on something that they've never accomplished that people are going to support. It's going to be based on the only way you got in. Are you going to actually do what we ask you to do?
So there's two ways that can come about realistically. And one is you have a completely split, fragmented government with literally equal amounts of seats for all the parties, because then they all have a vested interest in doing that. So that's one way. Or two, you have a military coup, because I don't see any other way of that ever happening.
No, that's a military coup is just a military coup. Is just another dictator.
Realistically, that's the way it would happen, because you will never have a majority party or a party that has a strong number of seats ever abolish parties. Why would they do that? People have to have they have to have
but also we're still a
commonwealth.
We're still somebody's bitch, right? So we're just fans of being somebody's bitch. Let's be very serious here. We as a country are just fine with being someone's bitch. That's just what we've accepted.
They're very
and
happy.
I mean,
about democrat constitutional no, they're not a constitutional monarchy, but they're happy to be part of the Commonwealth. They I think it makes them feel special or whatever, but
no, it's just laziness.
They're not upset.
We're fine being a bitch because it's It's just more work to try to get out of it. It's just a typical Canadian response. It's just too much work to get out of it. But let's move on from
I just see,
oh, go ahead.
to me,
No, go ahead,
I
Natasha.
was just going to say, to me, what I see right now, can you hear me? Can you hear me? No?
Yes.
Okay, so the undercurrent that I see that's going to come up, that is coming up in Canada, is the difference between the work ethic of immigrant communities and the work ethic of already established non-immigrant, usually white communities. There is absolutely a clash going on there, and that is going to inform politics for the next decade. That's what I see happening.
Allon, want to make a closing
That's
statement
just
on
my
politics?
projection.
I think you ladies have pretty much covered it. I mean, it just comes down to people realizing that voting is important, but you know, you gotta take a stand at some point, right? Like if you don't like what's going on, you don't like what's going on. I think lazy voting is the worst kind of voting. People voting because their grandparents did, their uncles did, all that nonsense that seems to happen pretty regularly here in the Maritimes. People stay in a party because their parents did, and they don't know anything else. And like we were saying off camera, if you will, I don't understand how you call an election when you're holding the winning hand. That doesn't make any sense. That's not choice. That's not true democracy.
That's a military coup.
That's yeah. I mean, it's just literally that's what it is. It's like we call an election when your numbers look good and when people like you. That's not choice. That's not fair, and it's not fair to the independent parties that are trying to make a difference when you give them less than a month to prepare and to campaign and to canvass and to get their point across. A lot of independent candidates don't have a war chest sitting around waiting to be just to spend. So so it's kind of an uphill battle, almost an impossible battle for these independent parties to actually get out there and make a change and make a mark. And people are like, oh, why? Well, that's a huge reason why, right? So I mean, the playing field is definitely not level. It's not even. Politicians are. You have to remember, politicians are politicians. That is a skill set. That is a career, right? There are learned behaviors and habits that come along with that. Much like Saly pointed out with Trudeau. As much as I don't shit on Trudeau as hard as some people, the man is a politician, right? He says dumb shit. He has certain viewpoints that are strictly political. For all of his apologetic behaviors and stuff, he's still a politician. He still has constituents that he has to cater to. He still has party lines he has to walk. So I mean, at the end of the day, I think people, no matter what party, you understand these are politicians, these are people who are looking to make a career out of this thing. But yeah, I personally have no love for politics at all. I don't feel that people who breathe and bleed like me should be telling me what to do. You know what I mean? Making laws and stuff, and especially here in the Maritimes, where it's just such an imbalance. Our immigrant population is growing steadily, daily, hourly. We're throwing our hat in the ring to take refugees from Afghanistan now. We're trying to do that now. It's like, come on, we've got this old white man as our leader. Like, how is that representative of the demographic, right? Like, things have to change here in Canada. And listen, the States is damn sure no better, but we're not talking about the States right now. We're talking about Canada. Canada really needs to shape up. And Trudeau, honestly, man, like, I thought you were the golden child, but dude, I've given you a pass on a lot of things, right? The SNC Lavalin thing, I gave you a pass on that because I was like, Canadians love making drama out of shit that's not dramatic. I gave you a pass on wearing the India garb in India, like wearing it. People laughed at you about that. I said, leave the man alone. He's trying to show some respect. I gave you a pass during COVID because I was like, at least he's doing something. You didn't shave the beard and just going off the fucking rails now. I don't know what the fucking problem is. Now you're being a politician, and now I got to say, I understand where people are coming from. to make a comment about, another, a female politician like that is just stupid and careless. um, and so you're younger, better. Um, that's my take. I just think that politics is a nasty game, and I think anyone who gets in it who is honest always has a harder way to go than those who are willing to play the game. Um, but I think people need to really understand that liberals and conservatives have proven time and time again that they really do not care about people of color. I think people
They
of
don't
color
really care about people.
They don't, but
We don't even need to finish it with people of color. They just don't care about people.
They
but
don't,
people of color are made the enemy because as long as they're the target of the majority is something else, they won't be the target.
Right.
Like Jeanette Pettypat-Taylor in Moncton, okay? We all know she's a full of shit liar. We all know this. But because she puts on a nice show and and makes it about the delusional people of color who just make problems out of nothing.
Right, but
and has a trophy POC bootlicker in her arm, we go around, we're like, oh, she's great. No, she's not great.
But that's what I've been trying to say on various platforms and podcasts over the past few years. People probably need to understand that, politicians that show up at your rallies are not there because they give a fuck. They're there for a photo op. Exactly. And if people of color aren't smart enough to know that by now, then I don't know what to tell. Like, what do you say to people? Right? If you don't understand that this politician is showing up only because they know that this is a hot topic right now, then why? Like, what do you expect? What do you expect? Right? Like that's
a photo op.
Yeah, I'm just saying people need to be smarter about politics, right?
I think that we need to communicate to people of color that stop looking at their voice and what they're saying, even if they sound nice and they're, you're happy that they're at least showed up. You should look at their policies and what they have actually done to uplift people of color. What have they actually done to protect people from racial profiling? What have they actually put in place? Not conversations, not committees. What have they done to
have they just basically done their job? Like, in my opinion, Jeanette didn't even basically do her job. All we did for her was ask for an investigation into the investments into a corrupt organization in Moncton, and she couldn't even just actually take the complaint or concern seriously, even though it was on national news, because the CEO is her buddy. Like, you can't even do your damn job, dude. Can't even do your damn job because you're so
not to do their job,
blinded by your friends. Like, what is wrong with you? Like, I'm sorry, am I going to be a doctor who's going to be like, no, I can't save this person's life because that person has beef with my friend? Or no, even better, I'm going to take your liver because my friend needs it more than you do. Let's do this. How far are we going to go? Like, how far are we going to go? If we're going to go that easy, that cheap in New Brunswick, we're willing to sell out our souls for people who will sell us for their friends.
They do it every day. But this is what I'm saying. This is why everybody's at risk. I know everyone is at risk. However, people of color and immigrants are far more at risk because we're not allowed in those special clubs. We don't have that special information. We don't have access to centers of power, and we don't know what we don't know. We just don't have access to a lot of information and resources that everybody else does. So I would say that, this cronyism and nepotism that basically is daily life in New Brunswick is bad for everyone. It's bad for business. It's bad for the province because you keep having incompetent people in places they shouldn't be. But it is much worse. It's exponentially worse for people who are immigrants and minorities because we would never get access to half the things that they have access to. So as always, it just makes everything worse.
Well, I think we've yelled in people's ears enough for today. I've yelled in people's ears enough for today.
We could invite, what's her name? What's her last name?
Jeanette Pettypat-Taylor.
You'd want to rebut what we're saying.
Pettypat-Taylor, please come. I will treat you nicely. I will wash my mouth with soap for that episode if you want to come and say that you are not brainwashed by your friend. I welcome you to come to this show. I will play nice and you can actually pretend like you give a shit about people in New Brunswick rather than just their votes. But I will play nice and give you a chance. And any politician who wants to come on our show,
Yeah.
we're more than willing to give you a chance, to give you a platform to reach people of color. Our viewership is growing. People of color are hearing about us. They are listening to our show. They are relating to us. And therefore, if you want to reach that vote, especially the disgruntled ones, maybe come on the show and try to prove us wrong. But for everybody else, like, seriously, get off your ass and vote. And frankly, I don't care who you vote for, as long as you vote for where your heart is, not where your mama told you to go vote for. Or you're like, do an educated, go vote. Like, don't put a check mark on a piece of paper, but do your research. Ask yourself what matters to you. Ask yourself, if you have children, what is it that you are afraid that your children will encounter in their lifetime? What are you afraid is going to take you away from raising your children? If it's rights and freedom and PC is your thing, I mean, I hate Maxime Bernier. I think he's a wannabe dictator tyrant. But you know what? If that's really where your heart is, go vote for him. Pardon? Would you say,
I'm
Natasha?
just gonna be straight. I think he's just insane. I don't even think he's mentally well. I think he's just completely insane.
If you've
But,
seen How to Become a Tyrant, I think it's called, on Netflix, he fits the bill perfectly.
that leads you to insanity, right? That level of blocking out what everyone else thinks, that leads you to, you know, a state of where you are not just living in reality, you're out of touch. Because
None
all
of these
do is
individuals
bad.
are living in reality if they think that our concerns are so basic as to the bullshit that they spew out to us to get our votes. Do your research on who
Yeah.
you're voting for, what they've done,
policies,
how they've grown from their mistakes, what are the accomplishments that they have made, what are the things that they have stood up for, advocated for. Are they an advocate? Are they an activist? Are they just somebody's bitch? Find out who these people are and vote for them. And if your heart tells you, like, I'm not a fan of the PPC, I have friends who love the PPC. I don't know why, but they do. Some of my friends don't understand why I'm so disgruntled with, you know, with the current representation in all political groups. That's just the way it is. You know, I respect the diversity of opinions, but I will not respect as lying. That is what I will not respect. And like all these people saying Trudeau has been the boss, he was so good for the little people. He was not good for the little people. The first people he gave a bailout was a $15 billion to the oil and gas industry. That's not helping the little people. Throwing us scraps at the end is not helping the little people. Still taxing us like bitches on the scraps that they give us is not helping the little people. Going in and destroying our economy by just sheer arrogance of refusing to force certain industries to shut down or innovate into something cleaner, and contributing to the destruction of our planet, even if we aren't the main contributing destroyers. That's not cool. That's not cool. But you know what else is not cool? Sitting on your ass or ignorantly voting. That's not cool either. So please, if you are a white person, a person of color, an angry person, an activist, a politician, a whatever the hell you are, go do your research and vote for the person who reflects your soul, not the person you feel you have to vote for to keep somebody else out, because that's just pussy voting. And that pisses me off, because that is not fair representation in our democratic system, the system that we pretend we have perfected, but really we're just a more polite version of an in-your backstab dictatorship. Any final points from anybody before we call it a day?
No, you said it all.
Allon?
No,
All right.
yes.
Thank you so much for tuning into another angry episode of We Can Fight Like Cats If We Have to. I'm Saly. Natasha's giggling. Allon's, I think, already asleep. I think we're all going to fall asleep in the next 10 seconds. It's quite late when we're recording tonight. But, you know, vote, 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 research, 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 read or listen or get credible sources, listen to them speak, and measure their words by their actions in the past. And I mean near past, not distant past. And in all honesty, like, we want to hear from you. We want to hear your stories. We want to hear your rebuttals. Politicians, you want to be on our show? Come at me. But like I said, I mean, come on the show if you would like. We'd love to have you. If you want to reach out to us, you can reach out to us on our Facebook page. We Can Fight Like Cats If We Have to podcast. Or you can email us at WCFLCNB@gmail.com. Subscribe, like, dislike, share. Tell us what you think. Have a beautiful day, night, week, everything. Be kind to each other, support one another. But most of all, if you can't do this one, the other two don't matter. Stand up for each other. Have a wonderful day.